Oh my goodness. A blockbuster trade is finalized the minute all of America is waking up, opening their eyes and checking their phone. And what the? DeAndre Hopkins is a Kansas City Chief? There's a lot to talk about here, ladies and gentlemen. So bear with me, but it's true. DeAndre Hopkins has officially been traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. And we are here to talk about the trade details. We're here to break down what this means for fantasy football and maybe if that impacts waiver wires or players that you're stashing. So, first things first, let's actually talk about the deal itself. All right, so according to Ian Rappaport, the Tennessee Titans, all right, are sending DeAndre Hopkins to the Kansas City Chiefs in exchange for a fifth-round pick that can turn into a fourth-rounder. The deal is being finalized. He says a key veteran who could be the final piece. Hopkins' name has been hot in the trade market, and now he lands with the champs. Let's be honest. I think Tennessee got real honest with themselves and said, okay, guys, I'm not sure we're really maximizing DeAndre Hopkins' window at this point, are we? So they said, let's go ahead and send him off. He's not producing. Calvin Ridley's not producing. We don't have a quarterback. Let's go ahead and send DeAndre Hopkins away to try and get some draft capital to build around in the future. Now, a fifth-round pick that can turn into a fourth-round pick is pretty interesting for sure. I think that makes sense for both sides. I think that's fair given currently where DeAndre Hopkins is as a player. But we actually do have some more news on this for you. It's from Ian Rappaport again. He says the two sides have been working to finalize the particulars overnight, as Tennessee will eat some salary and the escalators still need to be worked out, but it's expected to be completed. And again, we've got Underdog giving you the official details here, which is, again, a conditional fifth-round pick that can turn into a fourth-round pick. This was a huge area of need for the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Chiefs players on IR. If we have a look at this, it is a huge list of players, right? I mean, this list ranges from names like Juju Smith-Schuster, who just got put not on the IR, but there's a possibility with the hamstring injury. Rashee Rice, who is on season-ending IR. I mean, was one of the revelations of the NFL season here in beginning of 2024. But obviously has that huge injury. He's out. Pacheco is out with the fibula. And then Hollywood Brown, before the year, ends up on IR. So this is a team that was definitely struggling. This was not the same Patrick Mahomes that we were used to. He didn't have the same weapons. Travis Kelce, rather, is just not able to carry your offense the way that he once was. And this is a huge change for DeAndre Hopkins. Can you imagine what DeAndre Hopkins did when he got this text? Guys, can you imagine? All right, DeAndre Hopkins' agent texts him and says, hey, buddy, just want to let you know you're a Kansas City Chief. I mean, you remember what it happened to Antonio Brown when he got traded away from the Raiders? I think D-Hop had that same reaction, but it was actually justified this time. He's going from catching passes from Will Levis to Patrick Mahomes. I mean, the on-target rate was really bad from Will Levis. So this is a huge upgrade for him. Not a good season so far for DeAndre Hopkins. The wide receiver 74 in fantasy football. He had one good day in fantasy. That was week 3 versus the Green Bay Packers. But it's been rough, man. The targets just haven't been consistent. They haven't been there. I mean, I can tell you one guy who's probably wishing he was traded. That's Calvin Ridley. I mean, Calvin Ridley has 17 targets in the last 2 weeks. And he's caught 3 of them. He's caught 3 out of 17 targets in the last 2 weeks. So I bet you Calvin Ridley is kind of wishing he got in on that trade with DeAndre Hopkins to go to Kansas City. But this was a career low year for DeAndre Hopkins, right? 6.4 fantasy points for him, which is his lowest points per game in his career ever. And look, yeah, of course, the quarterback play has something to do with that. Playing in Tennessee has something to do with that. But, of course, he is getting up there in age. This is not a 25-year-old wide receiver, 28, 29, even 30 DeAndre Hopkins is 32 years old, so I'm sure he's welcome to the change of scenery, but this is by far so far his worst ever career season in the NFL in fantasy football. Right, only one touchdown on the season, barely any air yards or receptions, 6.4 fantasy points per game, and obviously that's not what we're expecting to see from a name like DeAndre Hopkins, right? I mean, you can see the seasons where he goes from Kyler Murray and the Cardinals and the DeAndre Hopkins years over to the Tennessee Titans. It's just not been as good, but he's not had any quarterback to get him the ball. Now that all changes with Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, and I guess the question is, does this help Patrick Mahomes? Does this help DeAndre Hopkins in fantasy football? And we're here to break that all down, because not only was DeAndre Hopkins having a stinker of a season, right? His worst season ever as a fantasy football asset, but you could actually make a case that so was Patrick Mahomes, right? Patrick Mahomes is averaging 15 points per game in fantasy football right now. That's 19th amongst quarterbacks. That is by far his worst ever performance in fantasy football. He has more interceptions than touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. And keep in mind, in 2017, that was his rookie year. He only played one game. All right. Since then, we're talking about a guy who's averaging well over 20 points per game. Last year was his worst at 18.4. This year at 15.2. Again, when you deal with all the injuries that Kansas City had, Rashee Rice, Isaiah Pacheco, Hollywood Brown, it's going to be tough for a guy like Patrick Mahomes to be a good fantasy asset. But obviously, DeAndre Hopkins coming into town is only going to help DeAndre Hopkins. Now, let's talk about where I currently have DeAndre Hopkins in my rest of season rankings for fantasy football. I've currently got him right around wide receiver 30. This news literally broke 5-10 minutes ago, so I would be dishonest if I told you I'm 100% confident on exactly where to rank him at this point, because I really don't know the exact answer right now. But I was asking myself, I was asking Badaki, hey, DeAndre Hopkins or Lad McConkey rest of the season, or JSN or Deontay or Mooney or Tank Dell, or, how about George Pickens with Russell Wilson showing some life there? Or what about Chris Olave when he comes back with no Rashid Shaheed, or Devonta Smith or Zay Flowers or Diggs, thinking about Nico Collins coming back, Marvin Harrison on a really, really bad start to his career. And I think this is where I'm kind of landing, right? A high-end wide receiver 3, I guess mid-range wide receiver 3 really is kind of my expectations. I'd say in the range of 12 to 15 points per game when he gets settled in. Wouldn't expect that this week, right, with Kansas City coming into town. The Kansas City Chiefs, this week they face the Las Vegas Raiders, so it's technically a good matchup, but he's going to have such little time to acclimate himself. Remember, guys, Amari Cooper was traded to a team midweek, and it was actually at the beginning of the week, so he had a bigger advantage. He only played 35% of the snaps in his first game as a Buffalo Bill, right? I mean, you got Devontae Adams, who kind of stepped in straight away when he was traded, and he played 96% of the snaps for the Jets in his premiere. But I think Amari Cooper is probably the better expectations for his first week, 35% of the snaps. We'll see how many times he gets targeted. We'll see what it looks like for the offense, but not a guy, that you're going to play this week, obviously, but definitely, I mean, he was my wide receiver 59 before this move. So this is clearly a huge help to DeAndre Hopkins. It gives him some life, and I'm not even going to sit here and pretend like this means he's going to be a superstar for fantasy. Number one, he's 32 years old. He's not the same player he once was. He's been dealing with injuries for the last couple of years, but he can still make an impact in fantasy football. I mean, this can be a guy in the red zone who's, getting 4 targets a game, and maybe 2 of those targets are in the end zone. I mean, that could be very valuable for a name like DeAndre Hopkins, who is going from, again, Will Levis to Patrick Mahomes. Now, so this is obviously very good for DeAndre Hopkins. Would I pick him up on the waiver wire? Absolutely. If DeAndre Hopkins is out there on the waiver wire in any of your small formats, definitely worth rostering to see what will happen. Would I go trade for him? Probably not, right? Probably not. I mean, this isn't like a trade where I'm like, all right, I mean, I really feel like the Amari Cooper deal. That was a different scenario for me. I felt great about that. I feel so confident in Amari Cooper moving forward. Clearly, this is a better situation for DeAndre Hopkins, but I'm not sure this turns him into a guaranteed locked and loaded top 20 guy rest of season ranking. So I'd be curious to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments below. Do me a massive favor. Go ahead and smash that like button. I got a like goal today of 50 likes on the stream. With your help, I think we can get there. Now, we talked about DeAndre Hopkins. This is definitely increasing his status in fantasy football. Let's talk about Patrick Mahomes real fast. Stinker of the year. Like we said, remember, guys, averaging, 15 points per game, which is a career low. It has not looked good. It has not looked good at all. So this definitely helps a name like Patrick Mahomes, but I can't put him over names like Dak Prescott. They're going to throw the ball a lot. Mahomes and the Chiefs are really built around the run game and the defense. I still can't put Pat Mahomes over a Brock Purdy, a Stroud, a Kyler, a Love, a Burrow. So I can't put him much higher than this. I definitely think it's going to help him. Because before this, you can make a good case he should be behind a lot of these names, like behind a Tua coming back, a Sam Darnold with all those weapons, a Jared Goff with all those weapons, a Geno Smith who's throwing the ball so much right now. But I think this makes him a fringe top 12. And as crazy as that sounds, he wasn't a fringe top 12. Like he wasn't even a startable name before this move. So I definitely think it helps him. But I do think we need to still limit expectations from both Mahomes and DeAndre Hopkins. I don't really think the identity of this team is going to change. Do you guys? I don't think the identity of this team really changes that much, if at all. I just think this is a weapon that they needed at this point with so many injuries to this team. Now, we've talked about Mahomes. We've talked about DeAndre Hopkins. How does this impact, number one, the other weapons in Kansas City? A lot of you guys are probably stashing Juju Smith-Schuster right now, and obviously that's because he had a really good game in place of Rashee Rice. He looked like the discount Rashee Rice in that game. What week was that again? I'm trying to remember. Let's have a look here. It'll be on Sleeper, but you guys all remember the game I'm talking about. That was week 5 versus the Saints. He had 7 catches for 130 yards. Became a really popular waiver wire pickup. And I'll be honest, I was talking to Badaki about this, and we both kind of feel like it's probably time to drop him. I don't think DeAndre Hopkins is going to impact his role when he's back. I think they'll both be very relevant. But he was already dealing with a hamstring injury that he was ruled out of last week's game for. So he's going to miss probably 2 weeks, right? I mean, that would be what I would anticipate. And then what, he comes back versus Denver versus Buffalo? I don't know. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure it's really what you want to wait on. In fact, I actually have Juju in the Flock League, and I'm sitting here asking myself, well, who else is on the waiver wire? Who else is out there that I could potentially add to my team instead of a name like a Juju Smith-Schuster, right? And I don't know the answer to that yet because our waiver wire is so bare. But I do think I will, after the stream, explore my options and probably end up picking one of these names, to be 100% honest with you guys. Because at the end of the day, I just think the upside for a Juju now is very limited when you add a name with such aura, with such stature as a DeAndre Hopkins. So Juju, borderline droppable at this point. You can make that decision on your own. He was my wide receiver 52. I haven't changed those rankings now. I probably would have to drop him pretty far now. Yeah, I'm probably preferring most of these names, honestly. As I'm looking here, I think probably the Josh Palmer range is where he drops in. Right there, like a fringe roster-worthy player. I would rather have the Batemans, the Keons, the Lockett's, the Suttons, the Pearsalls. I think I would rather have all of those names at this point. And of course, you're obviously going to be asking the question, well, what about Xavier Worthy? Well, Xavier Worthy, to me at least, it's been very clear their intentions for him was to be a big play threat this year. I don't think they wanted him to be an important part of this offense. And clearly, no disrespect to him, but clearly this move indicates that exact point. If they thought Xavier Worthy could be a number 1 alpha wide receiver, you don't go trade for a 32-year-old DeAndre Hopkins, right? So to me, this is just them allowing Xavier Worthy to go back into the role that they wanted him to be, which was a big play threat, 5 to 6 targets per game, maybe some jet sweeps, a little usage in the red zone, and just like those fun trick plays where you can really get his speed and space. So I'm sorry if you're out there and you own Xavier Worthy and you are expecting this post-bye rookie bump, because to be honest, we kind of saw it a little bit, right? I mean, you see this a lot with teams with their rookies after the bye week. They get a little bump in production or in opportunities at least. And you saw that after the bye here in week 7, we saw 8 targets for Xavier Worthy, which was a career high for him so far into his career. You can make an argument that with more weapons, maybe this is better for him, less attention. But at this point, I just think Xavier Worthy, I don't want this. This is just like a really upgraded version of MVS, and that's going to sound super disrespectful, but it's not meant to. Xavier Worthy is like a very, very upgraded version of MVS, who is still developing. They're going to give him time. They don't want to rely on him that much right now, and it's just, he's a startable name given matchups, but most of the time you're not going to start Xavier Worthy anymore. So I'm sorry if you traded for him, if you were waiting on, the post Rashee Rice, the post Juju Smith injuries, and, post bye, more work. But it's clear that they don't trust him to be their number one receiver. Otherwise, you don't go trade for a name like DeAndre Hopkins. So I definitely think this hurts him. Now, on the opposite side of this, I guess you could ask the question, well, I'm sorry, I'm laughing before I even say this. So, does this help Calvin Ridley? No. No, it does. They could trade every wide receiver from Tennessee, and it wouldn't help Calvin Ridley. No, it doesn't help Calvin Ridley at all. I mean, Calvin Ridley is stuck in hell. I think Calvin Ridley massively regrets coming to Tennessee. I think he has huge regrets. I think he wishes he was being shipped out of town. Because this is just hell for Calvin Ridley right now. Currently the wide receiver 69. The wide receiver 69, like I said, 17 targets in the last 2 weeks, has caught 3 total receptions. And if we look at his points per game, 7.5 points per game is by far the worst in his career. All right. Remember his rookie season, those 10 touchdowns alongside Julio Jones, almost 13 points per game. It progresses all the way up to the wide receiver 4 finish in 2020. Looked like an alpha. And then obviously the Jaguar year with 13.5 points. Signs to the Tennessee Titans, 7.5 points. Quite frankly, You can disagree with me, and that's fine. I don't see any reason to move Calvin Ridley up or down rankings. My wide receiver, 49. I'm not even sure that's low enough. Quite frankly, I'm not even sure 49 is low enough. I'd probably prefer Romeo Doubs at this point. It's not getting better. You could put Will Levis in the middle of the ocean in a rowboat. And you could put a pocket full of rocks. Say, Will, we just need you to throw this rock in the ocean. He would find a way. He would find a way for it not to land in the ocean. He just would. All right? It's not working in Tennessee. So, look, to recap, for DeAndre Hopkins, this is definitely an upgrade. He goes from about wide receiver 55 in my rankings up to around wide receiver 30, a wide receiver 3 for fantasy purposes. For Patrick Mahomes, you can't say it hurts him. It only helps him. That doesn't catapult him into a must-start every week. That doesn't catapult him into a top 6 quarterback for me. He's still a fringe top 12 name, but now you have a little more confidence that he has a better playmaker on his team. For Juju, I think you can drop him at this point. For Xavier Worthy, I'm sorry if you were expecting some big breakout, but I don't project that moving forward. I think he is a role player for this team, and I think there will be good fantasy days, but there will be a lot of busts. It's like probably going to be Rashid Shaheed in 2023, right? That version of Rashid Shaheed. For Calvin Ridley, I don't think it trades. I don't think it changes much, if anything. And ultimately, that's the way the cookie crumbles. So I appreciate y'all being here with me. A fun little way to start your day. Do me a massive favor. Go ahead and smash that like button to show some love. Subscribe if you like the content. We will be live tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to answer your fantasy questions, to talk more about the DeAndre Hopkins trade if you'd like, to talk more about start sits and trade questions and team reviews. So I appreciate y'all for being here with me. You guys have been very kind, very awesome, a great way to start our day. We are actually close to 100 likes, which is incredible. You guys are awesome. And I'll see you guys soon. Much love. Have a great day, and we'll see you tonight. See ya.